The final council session had been scheduled to last 3 days, but stretched into 3 weeks, as representatives struggled with a decision that would reshape galactic history. Arguments became heated as species that had coexisted peacefully for centuries found themselves on opposite sides. The Great Chamber that had witnessed thousands of diplomatic victories became a battleground of conflicting interests. Old alliances cracked under pressure, while new partnerships formed around positions. On the human question, Ambassador Vex of the Zentaran Empire argued passionately against human admission, claiming that their advanced capabilities would destabilize the careful balance that maintained galactic peace. His golden robes shimmered as he gestured toward data displays showing economic projections. Trade Representative Zeph of the Outer Colonies countered with evidence that human cooperation had already improved life for millions of independent world citizens. Their medical technology had ended plagues, and their agricultural methods had eliminated famines. The debate revealed deep divisions that had been hidden beneath diplomatic courtesy for millennia. Established powers wanted to preserve their advantages, while younger civilizations sought partnerships that could accelerate their development. Commander Thys surprised everyone by supporting human membership. Her warrior culture valued strength above politics, and the humans had demonstrated capabilities that earned her respect. The Molth clans would rather ally with powerful friends than face them as enemies. Religious representatives struggled with theological implications of human existence. Their creation stories did not account for species that seemed to violate fundamental rules about technological development and social progress. The scientific community remained split between those who welcomed human knowledge and those who felt threatened by theories that made their lifework obsolete. Research institutions faced the choice between advancement and pride. As days passed without resolution, the debate became increasingly desperate. Council members realized they were discussing not just human membership, but the future structure of galactic civilization itself. The traditional voting system required unanimous approval for major decisions, but consensus seemed impossible. Each faction had valid concerns that could not be addressed without alienating others. The careful diplomatic balance was breaking down young. Species demanded immediate human alliance regardless of council approval. They had seen the benefits of cooperation and would not be denied opportunities for advancement. The authority of established powers was being openly questioned. Several major civilizations threatened to withdraw from the council if humans were admitted as equals. They preferred isolation to accepting junior status in a human-dominated future. Their pride would not allow such humiliation. Emergency sessions led to emergency sessions as the crisis deepened. The council that had provided stable government for 3,000 years was tearing itself apart over a single membership application. Representatives who had worked together for centuries began making personal attacks and accusations of corruption. The veneer of civilized cooperation dissolved under pressure, revealing the primitive territorial instincts beneath. The humans waited patiently in their quarters while galactic civilization experienced its greatest political crisis. Captain Lee and her team remained available for questions, but were increasingly ignored as the debate turned inward. Dr. Cho offered to provide medical assistance when several elderly representatives collapsed from stress. Their human technology could have helped, but pride prevented most species from accepting aid from the source of their problems. Communications Officer An monitored council transmissions and reported growing unrest throughout the galaxy. Independent worlds were demanding explanations for the delay, while established governments struggled to maintain order. The intelligence networks revealed that human ships were already operating throughout council space on humanitarian missions. They had permission to help with medical emergencies and natural disasters, but their presence was changing everything. Public opinion shifted dramatically as ordinary citizens saw humans as helpful neighbors rather than threatening newcomers. The grassroots support created pressure on governments that had been trying to limit human influence. Trade networks began adapting to human competition as independent merchants formed partnerships that bypassed traditional commercial systems. The economic transformation was happening regardless of political decisions. When the final vote was called, the result shocked everyone. The council could not reach a decision. For the first time in recorded history, they were genuinely speechless about what to do. The vote was postponed indefinitely. The announcement created chaos throughout the galaxy as species struggled to understand how the most important decision in millennia could remain unresolved. The council authority was questioned openly for the first time. Captain Lee accepted the delay with characteristic grace that somehow made the aliens feel worse about their indecision. She thanked the council for their careful consideration and offered continued cooperation regardless of the final decision. The human delegation announced they would share medical and agricultural technologies freely while waiting for resolution. They asked nothing in return except permission to help species suffering from problems that human science could solve. The offer of free assistance created more controversy as governments struggled to maintain authority over populations that wanted immediate access to human improvements. The political implications were staggering. Humanitarian ships began appearing throughout council space with full legal authorization to provide emergency aid. The medical assistance was desperately needed, but each successful mission demonstrated human superiority. The agricultural programs were even more disruptive as human farming techniques produced food surpluses on worlds that had struggled with scarcity for centuries. The abundance challenged economic systems based on resource control. Educational exchanges began as young aliens requested access to human schools and universities. The knowledge transfer was voluntary, but the long-term implications threatened traditional social structures. Cultural programs introduced dangerous concepts about individual freedom and social mobility that inspired reform movements across multiple civilizations. The ideological contamination spread faster than governments could contain it. Human colonies expanded openly as independent worlds requested partnership agreements that provided technology and protection in exchange for cooperation. The network grew daily, regardless of council approval. The established trade routes became less relevant as human commerce offered better prices, faster delivery, and superior products. The economic transformation continued accelerating as more worlds joined the human network. Military cooperation agreements began forming as species requested human defensive assistance against pirates and hostile neighbors. The protection was freely given, but created loyalty that traditional powers could not match. As months passed, it became clear that the galaxy was transforming whether the council approved or not. Human influence spread through voluntary cooperation rather than conquest, making resistance increasingly difficult. The council remained officially silent on human membership, but their authority diminished daily as the galaxy adapted to new realities. The organization that had guided civilization for millennia was becoming irrelevant to the future public demonstrations demanded resolution of the human question, but the political deadlock continued. Representatives returned home to face populations that wanted immediate alliance with humanity, regardless of diplomatic complications. The story concluded with the council still debating while the galaxy moved forward without them. Humanity had become an integral part of galactic civilization through their actions rather than their words. The transformation was complete. Whether politicians approved or not, the humans had not waited for permission to join the galactic community. They had simply become essential to its continued prosperity and growth, leaving the council to either accept reality or become a historical footnote in the new age they had helped create. Through their silence, behind the closed doors of the emergency session chamber, council leaders faced the most serious crisis in their 3,000-year history. The humans waiting patiently in guest quarters had unknowingly created a problem that could destroy galactic civilization. Emperor Thex of the Zentaran Empire admitted what everyone was thinking. Human technology could make their most advanced civilizations look primitive within a single generation. The careful balance of power that maintained peace was crumbling. The Zentarans had built their influence on superior technology and ancient wisdom, but humans had casually demonstrated capabilities that made both advantages meaningless. Their own scientists were already requesting human assistance with basic research. War Chief Voss of the Calarian clans worried that human military tactics could revolutionize warfare in ways that made traditional advantages pointless. Her forces had conquered half the galaxy using superior firepower, but humans had shown that battles could be won without firing shots. The Calorian military academies would need complete restructuring to account for human innovations. Centuries of tactical development had become obsolete in the space of a few days as their war experts studied footage of impossible victories. Trade Minister Quark of the Nexilian Commerce Guild calculated financial projections that kept him awake for days. Human manufacturing capabilities and fair business practices could bankrupt established corporations within years rather than decades. Several galactic civilizations had built their wealth on controlling scarce resources that humans could apparently synthesize easily. The economic implications threatened the foundations of interstellar commerce that had existed for millennia. The Molth clans faced a different problem. Their warrior culture was based on honor through combat, but humans had shown ways to achieve victory through intelligence and planning rather than strength. The philosophical challenge threatened their entire social structure. Religious leaders from multiple species requested emergency meetings to discuss the theological implications of human existence. Their beliefs about the natural order of the universe were being challenged by a species that seemed to break fundamental rules. The council faced an impossible choice. Every traditional metric suggested that humans deserved immediate membership with high status, but accepting them could destabilize the carefully maintained systems that had kept peace for thousands of years. Several smaller species threatened to withdraw from the council entirely if humans were admitted as equals. They feared being absorbed or made irrelevant by a civilization that could accomplish in decades what took them centuries. The Braxian hegemony presented military analysis that showed human defensive capabilities could make entire fleets obsolete. Their shield technology and quantum weapons represented a complete revolution in space warfare that changed all strategic calculations. Scientific committees struggled with human research data that challenged fundamental assumptions about physics, biology, and engineering. Accepting human theories would require rewriting textbooks and admitting that galactic science had been stagnant for millennia. The intellectual pride of entire civilizations hung in the balance as university systems grappled with being surpassed by newcomers who treated advanced concepts as basic knowledge. Their greatest scholars felt like children trying to understand adult conversations. Dr. Yith of the Collective Research Institute presented findings that made the situation even worse. Human scientific development showed no signs of slowing down. They were still discovering new principles and developing better technologies at an accelerating pace. The projection data suggested that in 50 years, human capabilities would be so far beyond current galactic standards that other species would seem like primitive tribes by comparison. The gap would only continue growing as their research progressed. Economic advisors warned about catastrophic disruption to established trade routes if humans began offering their superior products and services freely. The current system depended on artificial scarcity and controlled technology distribution. The free market principles that humans practiced would destroy monopolies that supported entire civilizations. Independent worlds were already requesting human technology and fair trade agreements that bypassed traditional commercial networks. Political analysts identified the most dangerous aspect of human civilization, their ideas about individual freedom and democratic government. These concepts could inspire revolution in societies that depended on citizens accepting their assigned social positions. The philosophical contamination was already spreading as alien populations learned about human values through cultural exchange programs. Several governments had detected increased questioning of authority and requests for political reforms. Security services reported growing unrest on worlds that had contact with human traders. Citizens were asking why their governments could not provide the prosperity and freedom that humans offered to everyone they encountered. The Council Intelligence Network had identified human ships near locations where political reforms were taking place. The correlation was too strong to be coincidental, but too subtle to prove deliberate interference. Military planners studied human conflict resolution methods with growing concern. Their approach of helping defeated enemies rebuild created loyalty that lasted generations. The concept threatened traditional conquest models that depended on domination. The rehabilitation programs humans used after conflicts produced stable, peaceful societies that became strong allies. This was the opposite of what galactic powers wanted from defeated enemies, who were supposed to remain weak and dependent. The emergency session stretched for weeks as representatives struggled with a decision that would affect the future of galactic civilization. The humans remained patient and helpful while unknowingly holding the fate of thousands of worlds in their hands. Private meetings between faction leaders revealed growing panic about maintaining relevance in a galaxy where humans existed. Several species considered forming military alliances to preserve their traditional advantages. The younger civilizations saw opportunity where the established powers saw threat. They wanted immediate alliance with humanity regardless of council approval, knowing that early partnership could secure their futures. The older species faced the humbling realization that their age and experience meant nothing against human innovation. The wisdom they had accumulated over millennia was becoming obsolete faster than they could adapt. As the emergency session continued, it became clear that the Council was fracturing under pressure from a decision they were not equipped to handle. The unity that had defined galactic civilization for 3,000 years was breaking apart. The humans waiting for their answer had already won without realizing it. Their mere existence had changed the political landscape in ways that made the Council membership question irrelevant to the galaxy future. The traditional power structure was collapsing, not through conquest or revolution, but through the simple demonstration that better ways of doing things were possible. The most dangerous enemies were those who offered friendship and improvement. Council members found themselves in the unprecedented position of fearing the very species they were supposed to be evaluating. The humans represented everything that established civilizations had been trying to prevent: change, progress, and freedom. The investigation into human history began as routine background research, but quickly became something much more disturbing. The Council research teams expected to find typical development patterns of a young species. Instead, they discovered survival. Stories that defied explanation. Dr. Nari, from the human delegation, provided historical records with the casual attitude of someone sharing family photos. The data showed that humanity had survived multiple extinction events that should have destroyed their civilization completely. The planet Earth experienced ice ages that froze most of the surface, volcanic eruptions that blocked sunlight for years, and asteroid impacts that killed most life forms. Each event should have ended human development, but somehow they adapted and became stronger. The research teams found evidence of global wars where humans fought with weapons capable of destroying their entire world. Multiple times, their species came close to complete extinction through their own actions, yet they managed to survive and rebuild civilization. Environmental disasters that would have forced most species to abandon their planet became opportunities for humans to develop new technologies. They turned polluted wastelands into gardens and made uninhabitable regions support thriving cities. Commander Thiss studied human military history with growing amazement. Their wars were brutal and destructive, but always ended with the survivors helping rebuild what had been destroyed. Former enemies became allies, and broken cities became better than before. The pattern repeated throughout human history, Wherever disaster struck, they responded by developing solutions that prevented similar problems in the future. Each crisis made their civilization more resilient rather than weaker. Dr. Quinn analyzed human medical data and found capabilities that seemed impossible. Their bodies could heal from injuries that would permanently disable most alien species. The regeneration process was natural rather than technological. Dr. No demonstrated human medical technology by treating injuries that council physicians considered hopeless. A severed limb was completely regenerated in just a few hours using techniques that alien doctors thought violated basic biological principles. The medical demonstration created panic among several species when they realized humans could heal battlefield injuries that would end military careers. The implications for combat effectiveness were staggering if human soldiers could recover from anything short of death. Human population data revealed another shocking fact. Earth supported over 8 billion people with advanced technology and minimal environmental damage. Most planets could barely sustain 1 billion inhabitants without destroying their ecosystems. The industrial capacity numbers were even more disturbing. Human manufacturing output exceeded that of entire galactic sectors, despite having only one planet to work with. Their efficiency levels should have been physically impossible. Captain Yoon explained human space exploration philosophy during a private meeting with senior council members. The approach was completely different from traditional galactic colonization, methods that focused on resource extraction and territory control. Humans studied worlds completely before establishing colonies. They improved planetary conditions when possible and always left environments better than they found them. This careful approach allowed them to create thriving settlements in star systems that other species had written off as worthless. The exploration data showed human colonies in places that should not have been habitable. Worlds with toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, or dangerous radiation levels had been transformed into garden planets, using technologies the Council did not understand. Engineer Bay casually mentioned that humans had established profitable colonies in 17 star systems, while the Council was still debating their membership application. The colonies were already trading with each other and with independent worlds beyond Council space. The economic implications became clear when Business Representative Kang revealed the true scope of human commercial operations. Their trade network generated more wealth than some entire galactic civilizations, despite being only 5 years old. Communications Officer An provided the most disturbing revelation when she explained the extent of human intelligence gathering. They had not just been listening to Council transmissions, but actively analyzing galactic civilization for decades. The intelligence network was more comprehensive than anything Council security services had achieved. Humans knew ship movement patterns, trade route efficiencies, political relationships, and economic vulnerabilities throughout the galaxy. The data collection had been accomplished without anyone noticing. Human ships had been present at major galactic events for years, cataloging everything and building detailed profiles of every significant civilization. The intelligence reports showed that humans understood galactic politics better than most council members did. They had identified corruption patterns, predicted political changes, and tracked military buildups across multiple star systems. Captain Lee revealed that human analysis had identified several threats to galactic stability that the Council had missed. Pirate organizations were planning coordinated attacks, terrorist groups were developing dangerous weapons, and several governments were preparing for major wars. The intelligence data was offered freely to help prevent disasters, but the accuracy was so detailed that several alien governments became nervous about what else the humans might know about their secret activities. The investigation revealed that human capabilities extended far beyond what they had demonstrated during the formal testing. Everything they had shown was just the beginning of what their species could accomplish. The population surveys found humans living in environments that should have been deadly. Space stations near black holes, underwater cities on ocean worlds, and underground. Colonies on planets with poisonous surfaces were all thriving. Human adaptability seemed unlimited. They could survive and prosper in conditions that would kill other species within hours. The harsh environment of their homeworld had somehow prepared them for any challenge the galaxy could present. The research teams discovered that human technology development followed patterns that violated traditional scientific understanding. They had advanced from primitive tools to interstellar civilization, in a time frame that most species would consider impossible. The speed of their progress suggested that humans learned from mistakes more efficiently than other species. Each failure became a stepping stone to greater success, rather than a reason. To give up or slow down, Dr. Ryu explained that human educational systems were designed to encourage questioning authority and challenging established ideas. The concept made several alien educators very uncomfortable because their societies depended on citizens accepting traditional knowledge without argument. The philosophical differences went deeper than anyone had realized. Human values of individual freedom, scientific progress, and social improvement were fundamentally incompatible with the hierarchical systems that maintained galactic stability. The investigation concluded with a disturbing realization that humanity represented something entirely new in the galaxy. Their combination of technological capability, adaptive resilience, and dangerous ideas about freedom could reshape civilization. The Council research teams had expected to find weaknesses that would justify rejecting human membership. Instead, they discovered strengths that made established galactic powers seem primitive by comparison. The hidden capabilities that humans had not even bothered to mention during their application process were more advanced than anything the Council had ever encountered. The true extent of human achievement was only beginning. To be understood, senior council members met in emergency session to discuss findings that threatened the foundations of their civilization. The humans waiting patiently for their membership decision had already changed the galaxy simply by existing. The council decided that formal testing was necessary to properly evaluate human capabilities. The traditional trials had been used for centuries to determine if species were ready for galactic civilization. Every applicant had to prove their worth through standardized challenges. The first test was intellectual, where species had to solve complex mathematical problems that required advanced understanding of physics, chemistry, and engineering. The problems were designed by the greatest minds. In the galaxy, over thousands of years, Dr. Ryu led the human team into the testing chamber, which contained holographic displays and quantum computers capable of processing calculations that would take entire planets to complete the alien observers, expected to see humans struggle with concepts beyond their primitive understanding. Instead, Dr. Ryu looked at the first equation for exactly 3 seconds before pointing out an error in the original formula. The mistake had existed in council databases for over 800 years, and nobody had ever noticed it before. The testing computers began recalculating centuries of scientific data, while Dr. Ryu moved on to the second problem. She solved it in minutes, then showed how the solution could be simplified using mathematical principles that made the alien mathematicians start furiously taking notes. Engineer Kim tackled the engineering problems with casual efficiency that made the Nexilian technology experts uncomfortable. He not only solved the challenges, but suggested improvements to the testing equipment itself that would make future evaluations more accurate and faster. The physics section became embarrassing when the humans corrected fundamental equations that formed the basis of galactic science. The mathematics they used was so advanced that several alien professors admitted they could not follow the reasoning even when it was explained slowly. By the end of the intellectual challenge, the humans had not just passed every test, but had improved the tests themselves. The council scoring system had to be recalibrated because human performance exceeded the maximum possible ratings. The diplomatic simulation was supposed to be much harder, where humans had to negotiate peace between 2 warring alien factions. The test used real historical conflicts that had taken decades to resolve through traditional council mediation. Captain Wu entered the simulation chamber and immediately surprised everyone by ignoring both warring sides. She spent the first hour analyzing economic data trade routes and resource distribution patterns, while the simulated aliens continued fighting. The test supervisors became concerned that the human diplomat did not understand the challenge. They sent messages explaining that she needed to choose sides or find compromise between the opposing factions. Captain Wu politely ignored their suggestions. Instead, she identified hidden economic factors that were driving the conflict. Resource scarcity and unfair trade agreements had created desperation that made peaceful solutions seem impossible. The warring factions were fighting over problems that could be solved through better economics. Captain Wu presented a proposal that would make both sides prosperous through shared technology and cooperative resource development. The plan was so obviously beneficial that the simulated enemies began discussing joint business ventures instead of military strategies. The diplomatic simulation ended with former enemies planning construction projects and trade partnerships. The test supervisors had never seen anything like it. Traditional galactic diplomacy involved choosing winners and losers, not creating situations where everyone could benefit. The technology demonstration should have been routine, where species showed their best innovations to prove they deserved council membership. Most applicants brought their most impressive weapons or fastest ships to display their capabilities. Engineer Zhang walked into the demonstration area carrying what looked like a simple device no bigger than a human hand. The alien observers expected to see something more impressive from a species that claimed to have advanced technology. When Zhang activated the device, it generated a clean energy field that registered power levels higher than the entire council station. The readings were so extreme that several alien physicists insisted the scanning equipment must be malfunctioning. The energy output continued climbing until it reached levels that could power entire star systems. The device showed no signs of overheating or instability, even though it was producing more energy than some small suns. The physics should have been impossible. Dr. Cho explained that the device converted matter directly into usable energy using controlled quantum reactions. The process was completely clean with no radiation or dangerous byproducts and could run indefinitely, using common materials. The technology demonstration became uncomfortable when the aliens realized that this small human device could replace the massive power plants that supplied energy to their greatest cities. The implications for galactic infrastructure were staggering. The military exercise involved defending a mock colony from simulated attackers using whatever tactics seemed most effective. The test usually became a straightforward battle where superior firepower determined the winner human military. Tactics confused everyone watching the exercise. Captain Park commanded the defensive forces using strategies that seemed to ignore basic military principles. She spread her ships out instead of concentrating firepower. The simulated enemy fleet approached expecting traditional resistance with ships fighting ships until one side was destroyed. Instead, they encountered electronic warfare that turned their own systems against them and psychological tactics that made their crews doubt their mission. Human ships used the battlefield environment as a weapon, turning asteroids into projectiles and using solar radiation to blind enemy sensors. The attackers found themselves fighting the space around the colony rather than just the defending forces. The exercise ended with enemy ships surrendering without a single shot being fired by human vessels. The attacking force had been completely defeated through superior tactics and battlefield engineering that used their own strengths against them. The cultural exchange became the most unsettling part of the testing process when humans shared examples of their art, music, and literature. The themes were dangerous to hierarchical societies that depended on citizens accepting their place. Without question, human stories celebrated individuals who challenged authority, questioned traditions, and worked to improve society through personal effort. The concept that ordinary people could change the world made several alien governments very nervous about their own stability. The music contained emotional complexity that most species found overwhelming. Human composers had created works that expressed feelings and concepts that some aliens did not even have words for. The artistic sophistication was completely unexpected. Literature was even more problematic because human books contained ideas about freedom, democracy, and individual rights that could inspire revolution in oppressed societies. The philosophical concepts were too dangerous for several species to allow among their populations. The testing period was supposed to last 1 week, but extended to 3, as the Council struggled to process results that exceeded every expectation. Humans had not just passed the traditional trials, but had made them obsolete. Each challenge had been turned into a demonstration of capabilities that surpassed anything in the galactic community. The humans remained humble and helpful throughout the process, but their casual competence made the tests seem like children games. The scoring system broke down completely when evaluators tried to rate human performance. Numbers that high had never been needed before, and the traditional categories did not account for species that could improve. The tests themselves. By the end of the extended testing period, it was clear that the usual standards for Council membership were meaningless when applied to humans. The evaluation process had revealed that Earth represented something entirely new in galactic history. The test results raised uncomfortable questions about whether the Council itself was advanced enough to properly evaluate human capabilities. The organization that had guided galactic civilization for thousands of years suddenly seemed outdated. Captain Lee and her team accepted congratulations gracefully, but their success had created problems nobody knew how to solve. The tests had proven human superiority rather than readiness, and that created political complications throughout the galaxy. The Council faced the unprecedented situation of having to admit species that were clearly more advanced than the organization they wanted to join. The traditional power structure was crumbling before their eyes as the implications became clear. The questioning session resumed after a short break, but the atmosphere in the Council chamber had completely changed. The alien representatives whispered among themselves in languages they thought humans could not understand. They were wrong about. That translator Park listened to every conversation and occasionally smiled at particularly interesting comments. She made notes on her tablet while pretending to organize diplomatic papers. The humans were gathering intelligence even during formal proceedings, and nobody seemed to realize it. Counselor Thex of the Braxian hegemony stood up to ask the next question. His insect-like features clicked together as he prepared what he thought would be an easy inquiry about human military strength. He expected to hear about simple guns and basic armor that would prove humanity was not a threat. Captain Lee responded with the patience of someone explaining obvious facts to children. She described defensive energy barriers that could, stop anything short of a direct star collision. The shields used something called harmonic resonance that turned incoming attacks back against the attackers. The Braxian military advisor started taking frantic notes as Lee continued talking about antimatter torpedoes that could crack planet surfaces and quantum disruption fields that made matter itself unstable. These were not the primitive weapons they had expected from a young species commander. Thys interrupted with growing excitement. Rather than concern, she wanted technical specifications for the quantum weapons. The Molth clans had been fighting the same enemies for centuries, using the same old tactics, and suddenly here were completely new possibilities for warfare. Engineer Kim stepped forward to provide the requested data. His tablet projected holographic displays that showed weapon designs in 3 dimensions. The mathematics behind the quantum disruption technology made several alien physicists start calculating power requirements on their own devices. Dr. Quinn of the Nexus Collective nearly fell out of his floating chair when he saw the energy equations. The humans had somehow solved problems that had puzzled the greatest minds in the galaxy. The math was so elegant that it had to be correct, but the implications were terrifying. The scientific presentation took an unexpected turn when Dr. Cho, the human science advisor, began explaining their approach to faster-than-light travel. she wrote equations. On the holographic display that made the entire physics section of the council start arguing among themselves, traditional galactic FTL technology bent space around ships to create artificial wormholes. The process required massive amounts of energy and could only work along predetermined routes that took centuries to establish safely. Human ships apparently used a completely different method. Cho explained that human FTL worked by convincing reality that the ship was already at its destination. The philosophical implications made the more religious species very uncomfortable, while the scientific community struggled to understand how such a concept could possibly work. The demonstration became more unsettling when Cho showed footage of human ships appearing and disappearing without the usual energy signatures that marked traditional jump drives. The vessels seemed to simply stop existing in one place and start existing somewhere else. Instantly, Representative Vorth demanded to know how many human ships existed and where they were currently located. He expected Captain Lee to provide rough estimates or refuse to answer for security reasons. Instead, she gave exact numbers and locations for the entire human fleet. The data showed 300 ships spread across 17 star systems, with more being built every month. Each vessel carried technology that could outperform the best ships in the Council fleet. The humans had built a space navy that could challenge. Major Galactic Powers business representative Kang took over the economic discussion with the calm confidence of someone who owned several planets. His simple black suit looked ordinary, but the data pad he carried contained information that would revolutionize galactic trade. The Council had always assumed that young species needed centuries to develop interstellar commerce. Instead, Kang revealed that humans had been secretly trading with independent colonies beyond Council space for 5 years, running profitable operations that competed directly with established businesses. The trade routes humans used were more efficient than anything the Council had developed. The shipping costs were lower, the delivery times were faster, and the quality of human-manufactured goods was consistently superior to galactic standard products. Merchant Zex demanded to see proof of these impossible claims. Kang smiled and activated a holographic display that showed detailed trade records. The numbers were staggering. Human commerce had grown from nothing to billions of credits in just 5 years. The most shocking revelation was that human traders had been offering better deals to independent colonies that the Council had been exploiting for decades. Fair prices, advanced technology, and honest business practices had won customer loyalty that established corporations could not match. Ambassador Song addressed growing concerns about human intentions by showing footage from recent Earth conflicts. The aliens expected to see glorified battles and conquest celebrations. Instead, they watched something that confused every military mind in the chamber. The videos showed human soldiers rebuilding destroyed cities, sharing medical supplies with former enemies, and establishing democratic governments in conquered territories. The concept of helping defeated opponents was completely foreign to most galactic civilizations. The Calorian war chiefs studied the footage with growing bewilderment. Their culture solved disputes through strength and domination, but humans seemed to fight only until problems were solved, then immediately switched to helping everyone involved. Recover Song explained that humans believed defeated enemies could become valuable allies if treated with respect and given opportunities to improve their situations. This philosophy had allowed Earth to establish peaceful relationships with former opponents throughout their history. The cultural exchange portion of the meeting created even more discomfort when humans shared examples of their art, music, and literature. The themes of individual freedom, questioning authority, and constant self-improvement made hierarchical alien societies deeply nervous. Several species had strict rules about discussing such dangerous concepts, but humans treated them as basic values that every intelligent being deserved. The philosophical differences ran deeper than anyone had anticipated and threatened the foundations. Of established governments, young engineer Bay noticed structural problems with the council station while the discussions continued. She pointed out design flaws that could cause catastrophic failures during emergency situations. Her suggestions for improvements were so obvious that the chief architect felt humiliated. The humans seemed genuinely confused about why their helpfulness was making everyone uncomfortable. They offered solutions to problems, shared knowledge freely, and treated alien dignitaries as equals rather than superiors. The behavior was unprecedented in galactic diplomacy. Dr. Ryu presented human medical technology, including treatments for diseases that other species considered incurable. The demonstration involved healing injuries that council physicians thought were permanently disabling using techniques that seemed impossible. The regeneration process worked so quickly that several observers accused the humans of using holographic illusions until medical scanners confirmed that real healing was taking place. The implications for battlefield medicine and extended space exploration were staggering. Communications. Officer On revealed the extent of human intelligence gathering in response to questions about their information sources. The humans had not just been listening to public transmissions, but analyzing ship movements, studying trade patterns, and building detailed profiles of major civilizations. The intelligence network was more comprehensive than anything the Council Security Services had achieved. The humans knew more about galactic politics than most government officials and had accomplished this feat while remaining completely undetected. As the questioning session continued, it became clear that every assumption about human capabilities had been wrong. This young species from an insignificant planet possessed technology that could revolutionize the galaxy and philosophical concepts that could reshape civilization. The Council members found themselves in the unprecedented position of interviewing applicants who were clearly more advanced than the organization they wanted to join. The power balance that had maintained galactic stability for millennia was shifting with every human answer. Captain Lee and her team remained patient and helpful throughout the interrogation, but their casual competence made the situation more uncomfortable with each passing hour. The humans were not trying to intimidate anyone, but their very existence challenged everything the Council thought they knew. The formal session was scheduled to last 1 day, but stretched into 3 as representatives struggled to understand what humanity represented. The questions became more desperate. As alien civilizations realized their assumptions about technological development and social progress might be completely wrong, by the end of the extended questioning period, the council chamber had become a place of uncomfortable silence broken only by whispered conversations in languages the humans understood perfectly. The galaxy was about to change whether the established powers were ready or not. The massive space station floating around Zentara Prime had never seen such chaos. The emergency lights flashed red across every corridor as alien beings rushed through the halls. Their 4 arms, 6 legs, or tentacles moved faster than usual because something impossible had happened. A signal had come from the outer edge of the galaxy, from a tiny blue planet that nobody cared about. The message was short, but it made every council member stop what they were doing. Earth wanted to join the galactic community. Ambassador Vex of the Zentaran Empire stood in the main control room staring at the transmission data. His purple skin had turned almost white with shock. In 3,000 years of council history, no primitive world had ever contacted them. First, young species were supposed to be found and evaluated, not announce themselves with perfect galactic language skills. The communication came through 17 different channels at once. Each message was in a different alien language, and all of them were grammatically perfect. The translation computers kept checking for errors, but found nothing. The humans had somehow learned languages that took most species centuries to master. Commander Thais of the Molt. War clans crashed her, massive fist against the metal wall. Her shark-like teeth showed as she growled in confusion. How did these creatures know their military communication codes? The humans had used proper Molth battle protocols to request safe passage through their territory. In the science wing, Dr. Quinn of the Nexus Collective was having problems of his own. The human data packets were organized in ways that made their advanced computers work faster instead of slower. These primitive beings from a backwater planet were somehow teaching their systems to be more efficient. The council chamber filled with representatives from 12 different species. Some flew on wings, others slithered on tentacles, and a few rolled on mechanical wheels. They all wanted answers about the mysterious humans, but nobody had any good explanations. The Calorian trade representative, Merchant Zex, kept looking at economic data that made no sense. The humans claimed they had already been trading with independent colonies. Beyond council space for 5 years, they offered better technology and fairer prices than established galactic corporations. Somehow, Captain Lee stepped off the human diplomatic ship onto the station docking bay. She wore a simple blue uniform and carried what looked like a basic tablet computer. Her black hair was tied back, and she smiled politely at the crowd of aliens waiting for her. Behind her came Engineer Kim, who immediately noticed problems with the station design. He whispered something to Translator Park, who nodded and made notes on her device. The 3 humans looked completely calm, despite being surrounded by beings that could easily kill them. The welcoming committee had expected to meet primitive creatures who barely understood space travel. Instead, they found humans who had arrived in a ship that registered energy readings higher than most council vessels. The docking computers had trouble processing the advanced materials and systems. Ambassador Vex approached the human delegation with formal ceremony. He spoke in ancient Zentaran, which was considered the most difficult language in the galaxy. Captain Lee replied in perfect Zentaran without using her translator device. Her accent was better than most council members, who had studied the language for decades. The formal procession toward the council chamber became awkward when Engineer Kim stopped to look at a malfunctioning wall panel. He pulled out his tablet and within minutes had the system working better than it had in years. The Zentaran technicians watched in amazement as their most complex machinery responded to simple touches from a human device. Translator Park chatted casually with various aliens as they walked. She switched between languages, so smoothly that several representatives forgot she was not from their homeworld. Her knowledge of cultural customs impressed even the most traditional council members, who usually looked down on younger species. The main chamber was a huge circular room with seating for representatives from across the galaxy. Holographic displays showed star maps, trade routes, and diplomatic data. The ceiling opened to show the stars beyond, and artificial gravity kept everyone comfortable regardless of their biology. Captain Lee took her place at the center of the chamber while her team stood nearby. The humans looked tiny compared to some of the larger alien species, but their confidence filled the entire room. They had prepared for this moment, and it showed in every detail. Representative Vorth of the Calarian Empire was the first to speak. His golden skin reflected the chamber lights as he demanded to know how humans had learned galactic languages without any previous contact. The question that everyone wanted answered hung in the air. Park smiled and began to explain in simple words that hit like thunderbolts. The humans had been intercepting council communications for decades. They had decoded the languages, studied the politics, and quietly prepared for this exact meeting while the galaxy continued business as usual. The silence that followed was complete. Even the usual background noise of the station seemed to stop. The implications were staggering. These newcomers had been watching and learning while remaining completely hidden from the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy, Commander. Theus leaned forward with interest instead of anger. She asked about human military capabilities, expecting to hear about basic weapons and simple defenses. Captain Lee politely listed defensive systems that included energy shields, antimatter weapons, and something called quantum disruption technology. The Molth warrior had fought against every major power in the galaxy, but had never encountered weapons like the ones humans described casually. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible for such a young civilization. Yet the humans spoke about them like they were everyday tools. Dr. Quinn requested technical specifications, expecting to find obvious flaws or exaggerations. Instead, the human data packets contained mathematical proofs that solved problems Nexus scientists had struggled with for centuries. The equations were elegant, simple, and completely revolutionary. Engineer Kim offered to help upgrade the station systems while they talked. He pointed out inefficiencies that could be fixed easily and suggested improvements that would increase power output by 30%. The chief engineer, a proud Nexilian, stormed out. Rather than admit a primitive human had found flaws in their greatest achievement. The economic discussion became even more uncomfortable when Captain Lee revealed the true extent of human space exploration. They had not just reached nearby stars, but had already mapped most of the local galactic arm, identifying 17 habitable worlds that the Council had somehow missed in 3,000 years. Merchant Zex demanded proof and got detailed survey data for each world. The information was more complete than anything in Council databases, including mineral resources, native life forms, and terraforming possibilities. The humans had accomplished in decades what should have taken centuries. The session was supposed to be a simple first contact meeting, but had turned into something much bigger. Each answer the humans gave raised more questions about their true capabilities and intentions. The careful balance of galactic power suddenly seemed much less stable as the formal questioning continued. It became clear that Earth arrival was not just another species joining the community. The humans represented something entirely new and potentially dangerous to the established order. Their combination of advanced technology, diplomatic skill, and genuine friendliness was completely unprecedented. The Council members exchanged worried glances as they realized these newcomers might change everything about how galactic civilization worked. The humans waited patiently for more questions, while their ship in the docking bay continued to generate readings that made station computers struggle to keep up. Captain Lee looked around the chamber at faces that showed confusion, fear, and growing respect. She knew this was just the beginning of a much longer conversation, but felt confident that humanity was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead in their journey to join the stars.